Jay Burney, and welcome to our show. I'm coming to you from my living room in Buffalo, New York. Today we're going to be talking with Tom Kerr, who's a naturalist at Beaver Meadow Audubon Center with the Buffalo Audubon Society. Tom has been there for about 10 years, and he's a great friend. I love Beaver Meadow. It's one of my favorite places. I started going to Beaver Meadow in the mid-1970s. I was a volunteer there for a number of years. I became a board member. On the board, we help do things like plan for the Nature Center, raise money for the Nature Center that you see there today. I also helped to spearhead the creation of the Niagara River globally significant important bird area. Beaver Meadow has always been a big part of our life since I first went there. When my kids were little, Jean, Jamie, we used to take walks on the trails and meet the guides that were out there. It was just fantastic, and I'm sure it planted wonderful seeds. Many of you know Tom. I was privileged last fall to go with my family and others to a Buffalo Audubon sponsored bird tour to Texas along the border, Brownsville. We also went to the Aransas National Wildlife Refuge where we saw whooping cranes, which is pretty cool. And we went to the National Butterfly Center, which is the place you may have heard of. It's on the border, and they're building part of the wall right through the middle of it and destroying a lot of the habitat there. Tom and the Buffalo Audubon Society are great partners with the Birds of Niagara Festival, now going on its third year. We hold this event in February and we celebrate the winter birds of Niagara. But now, let's talk to Tom and find out what's going on right here, right now, with birds in the spring of 2020. Hi, Tom. So this is the Check-in. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I mean, it's a difficult time, obviously. We're homebound for the most part. We all try to get out and see birds when we can and still continue to isolate. But you're home with a family for the most part. Your family's getting through it mostly?
As best as we can. There's a lot of schoolwork being done. My wife's working from home. She has actually, it feels like she's a lot busier, it feels like, with her job. So
I feel the same way. My days are pretty filled up, and it's awful to be homebound. But it's good to see you, and it's good to talk
yes,
about birds because birds are so much a part of our lives, and they're going on right now. Even as we're homebound, maybe the birds like it better that people aren't going out. But let's talk a little bit about Buffalo Audubon and Beaver Meadow. What's going on at Beaver Meadow during this crisis?
well, right now our nature center is closed. The trails are still open, but if you're going to go out and visit Beaver Meadow, you should expect not to be able to use the bathrooms or the drinking fountain, and that everything will be shut down.
Well, we hope that at some point we get over this and we can get back our access to these beautiful places that Buffalo Audubon manages and maintains, including Beaver Meadow and a bunch of other nature preserves. So the birds are going on. We're entering into this really beautiful spring migration with neotropicals. What should we be expecting right now?
Right now, the first couple warblers are arriving. You should be looking for pine warblers and palm warblers, and then pretty soon we'll be seeing the rest of them, yellow warblers and common yellow throats will be coming through. Swallows, tree swallows are showing up. I saw my first barn swallows this morning. So a lot of the insectivores, as soon as it starts to warm up and the insects start coming out of ponds and streams and start going into the air, we're going to see a lot of birds showing up to take advantage of that and eat those.
One of the neat things that you shared with the birding community going back a couple of years now is we can use radar to see how bird migration is occurring not only across the continent, but even locally. Are you looking at radar now? And are you seeing anything if you are?
I have noticed some of the blooms on radar. I woke up this morning to go bird watching. I looked, it was disappointing. There was almost nothing on the radar. But I went anyways and saw a lot of robins and starlings and woodpeckers and things that have been here for a while. hoping to find some migrants, see something new today. I saw two barn swallows, so that was exciting.
That's pretty cool. I bird at Times Beach when I can, and we've been seeing barn swallows down there for a couple of weeks now. I guess people are seeing kinglets also. There's a lot of great places in Western New York, but over the next couple of weeks, this is usually typically a time of incredible abundance of migrating warblers. What kind of things can we be expecting in the next few weeks going into May?
Well, if we have some warmer weather, which has been tough, it was snowing yesterday still. If we have some warmer weather, usually on mornings following a warm front arriving, we'll see a lot of warblers and other neotropical migrants arriving. It is very weather dependent, so it could be they're probably a little bit backed up with the weather. So I would expect when we get that first real good warm day, that we'll have a lot of things arriving all at once.
So people could be expecting to be seeing things, and again, reminding folks if they do go birding, think of the isolation thing and make sure you wear your masks. But the birds will be here, and if you can get outside, there's a lot of places that you can get to. But again, try to avoid crowds. Um, One of the neat things that we've observed over the years, just a couple of years ago, on this date, we had this incredible fallout of loons in Buffalo's Outer Harbor, loons and grebes. We're not seeing that this year. That was kind of an unusual event. But we do see fallouts of things, and different seasons bring different things. Um, so, you got any advice what people should be doing right now in terms of birding?
My advice right now with birding and coronavirus is to try to find someplace new. Look for a place that you've never birded before. So what I started last year was trying to bird close to home because I realized I don't have a lot of free time to go bird watching on my own. And I don't want to waste any of that time driving if I can help it. So I started going to a park close to my house, Ellicott Creek Park, and a cemetery close to my house, Elm Lawn Memorial Park. And I've been bird watching there, and you don't find the numbers that you find at say Tift or Forest Lawn, but I was able to find most of the stuff that I would find, most of the birds that I would find in those places. I was able to find um, in these smaller parks. Ellicott Creek has actually been really great. It wasn't even an eBird hotspot when I started doing this, and I made it an eBird hotspot. And a couple people have been birding there. I see their checklists. We found a great horned owl nest, which is very exciting, in a place where nobody goes birding. So, trying to find a new spot to go birding, you never know what you're going to find. Everyone has an idea of what they're going to find at Forest Lawn, or what they're going to find at Tift, or what they're going to find at Beaver Meadow, and that's great. And I think everyone should try to get to those places while they can during this. But if you're going to go bird watching every day, I would I would recommend to try to go find a place where no one's gone birding. You'll find it. There's a lot of places like that, and finding a really good bird in a spot where nobody else is birding means you found it. It's it's more rewarding in some ways. So that's my advice to people that are going bird watching, is to just try new places during this. We don't all have to crowd up at Forest Lawn, which is a shame because that is one of my favorite days of the year. That first day when everyone runs the Forest Lawn, I'm going to miss a lot this year. It's so good to see everybody. Winter's been long and we've all been stuck in our house and we've been waiting for the birds, and when the birds arrive, there they are, and there's people you haven't seen in a while, and everyone's happy and in a good mood, and it'll be missed this year, but um, we got to be safe and we got to do this smart, and we don't want to get to a situation where people are saying you can't go bird watching because this is too dangerous. So we have to be responsible ahead of that.
Well, I sure miss everyone's faces, and it's really great to see you. And I'm sure people are really happy to see you and hear you also. I know that last year, I think you did a birding Tonawanda big year project. How did that work out?
It went good. It was a lot of fun. I had around 140 birds.
That's great.
I started a Facebook group, birding in the town of Tonawanda. I would share some of the things I saw to different town Facebook groups. You know, people get excited to see a hawk nest, and I think I found about seven doing the breeding bird atlas in Tonawanda. There's seven hawk nests I know about in the town of Tonawanda. There's probably even more that I've never seen. I found one like in a neighborhood. I just saw a big tall tree that had a nest in it when I was driving around. I saw it from the 290, and I drove over, and there it was. Like, do the people that live there now? Like, I hope so. That's amazing. I wish I had any bird nest in my yard right now. So, it was fun to stay close to home to find new places. Um, and surprises like there's bald eagles nesting in Tonawanda. A lot of people don't know that. The Strawberry Island is part of the town of Tonawanda. I didn't know that. I've lived in Tonawanda almost all my life. um, I found red-headed woodpeckers nesting in Tonawanda. We almost saw an Arctic tern in Tonawanda from the Aqua Lane, but it didn't turn out to be an Arctic tern. Even though people were seeing it on the other side of the river, I was not able to see it from ours. So it was a lot of fun. I'm not doing it this year. I'm still keeping track of new birds that I've seen in Tonawanda. So two new birds that I've seen were rusty blackbird and blue-winged teal this spring. So that was exciting. The rusty blackbird I had hoped to find in Ellicott Creek last year and didn't. And then the first time I really went looking for one this year, he was right there singing, and I was able to hold up my binoculars and my camera phone and get a really bad picture of him. But it was nice.
A lot of us are enjoying, I guess enjoying is the right word, virtual birding. We use a lot of social media. I know that you host a Facebook page on birding. We're sharing a lot of our experiences and seeing birds, which is a lot of fun. Thank you for doing that, by the way. It's a really great resource to go to online and see pictures of local birds. I want to ask you a little bit about the Breeding Bird Atlas. I know that this is done on a cyclical basis. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
So this is the third breeding bird atlas. The last one was in 2000, and before that was 1980. So this is the first one with eBird, which is interesting. We didn't have access to eBird in 2000, and so being able to do this through eBird and have everything submitted digitally through an app on your phone is, I can't even imagine how difficult that must have been 20 years ago. But this year it's pretty easy. If you're birding and you're using eBird, you're doing the breeding bird atlas. Is all you have to do is click that you're gonna switch the portal in your settings to the breeding bird atlas. And I signed up for two squares. The square closest to my house in Tonawanda. Actually, the boundary goes along the fence in my backyard. So my neighbor's backyard is in the priority block, and my backyard isn't. So if I stand at the fence and look into their backyard, I can count birds in their priority block. That that block includes the Elm Lawn Cemetery, where I do spend a lot of time birding. That's why I picked it. And then the block that my house includes the block that includes my house also includes Ellicott Creek Park. So these are places where I was going to go birding anyways, and I'm submitting bird watching breeding data to this, you know, pretty big project. It's going to go on for 5 years. So the other block that I selected was at Beaver Meadow. So I'm counting breeding birds there. And so when we start up, if we start up our bird banding project this spring, all that data from our bird banding project will go right into the breeding bird atlas. So that was the hope. This goes on for 5 years, and hopefully this will be the only year we're all self-isolating with quarantines and coronavirus. So
Why is the Breeding Bird Atlas an important project?
it's like the official guide for what is breeding in New York. So it's used for habitat management, it's used for land development, it's used, for population studies. So if somebody needs to know where birds breed in New York, they're going to look to that. Also, it shows that since this is 40 years of doing this since 1980. So it shows changes in populations over time. So we're seeing an increase in some species, such as starlings and merlins and red-bellied woodpeckers and Carolina wrens. We're also seeing a decrease in some species that used to breed in New York that don't anymore, like loggerhead shrike doesn't breed in New York anymore. It still breeds in Ontario. They do captive breeding programs there, so who knows? But I don't. It's been years since someone found breeding loggerhead shrike in New York.
So this is a pretty big and important science-based project to help track bird populations, identify where birds are, and identify where birds aren't. And so that's an important project, and I'm glad that we're doing it this year. Also, eBird is something that is relatively simple to do. If you're a birder, it's not hard to get an eBird account and just mark what you're seeing, and it helps the scientific world to understand what is where. So if you're a birder, you're watching,
Sure.
you're not doing eBird, do it.
I It is easy to look at eBird if you're a new birder and feel intimidated. But you can become familiar with eBird without submitting, and then when you're ready, submit your checklists, and you can start small. You can start like, okay, well, I'm going to do eBird checklist just the birds I see in my yard because I know all those, and once you get familiar with that, you can move on from there. But with the app available now on your phone, like it's just so easy, and it's almost like if I don't do an eBird checklist in a certain day, in a given day, I have to like go run out of my house before it gets dark to get that checklist in before I can't. So I think I have a streak of 115 days, which goes back to January 1st this year. So today is the 115th day of the year.
So eBird is simple to do. It can be intimidating. I agree. But there's also, that's out of Cornell. There's also identification apps like Merlin, which you can use on your phone, which helps you understand what you're seeing and where you're seeing it. So a couple of important technological tools that help new birders and old birders. And Tom, I've known you for a bunch of years now, and one of the things that's always interested me about you is that before you came to Audubon, you were working as a ranger in New York City. And what did you do there?
I bird watched a lot. I will admit that. Um,
There were some,
it was a job where people would. I'm sorry.
I just say there were some birds that you were watching.
Yes. It's a job that definitely, when I would tell people what my job was, they would be very interested. And they would say things like, "Oh, it's so great you work with animals." And I would say, I work with people a lot. It's a people job. It's bringing people outside, helping people have fun in nature, helping people be safe in nature, protecting that for everybody. So there was a law enforcement part of my job, which was not my favorite part of my job, but there was, lots of times where I was just, pointing out something to somebody, something I would find, a plant or a turtle, or, I'd carry my spotting scope around and point out hawk nests to people. And New York is a place that people are like starving for nature. Like you think of it as a big city and you think of it as just like people don't appreciate nature there. They do, they just don't always know it's there. And so when they see it, things that we would see, like, like I get excited by a red-tailed hawk nest, but in New York City, people are like, "Oh my god, I can't believe it!" So it was a really fun job, and I'm never gonna forget my time. I could write a book on all the crazy things that happened and the people I worked with that were so great and so enthusiastic about nature and history, and New York City was a great place. So I'm glad to be home. Buffalo and Western New York and Tonawanda will always be my home.
There was one bird that you were responsible for protecting nesting areas along some of the beaches. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So uh, there would be seasonal opportunities for promotions for ranger staff, and one of the promotions I was given was to be the piping plover sergeant. So we monitored a nesting colony of piping plovers, American oyster catchers, and least terns on Rockaway Beach in Queens. This song about Rockaway Beach from the Ramones is mostly lies. It's first off, it's hard to reach. It's far away. We would joke and just call it far away sometimes. But that was great. I learned a lot about habitat management and endangered species. Piping plovers are federally listed as endangered species. Least terns and American oyster catchers are species of concern. Uh, they did better than the piping plovers. There were some years where we had very few piping plovers actually fledged chicks. The one year I worked there, we had zero. Least terns and American oyster catchers always seem to do okay if people would just leave them alone, and that's what a lot of times we need to do is just leave them alone, give them their space, give them their habitat, and not worry about doing anything. Just if they have the space and they're left alone, they'll be fine. But it's hard in New York City to give nature a place to be alone. We worked as hard as we could on that, and from what I've heard in recent years, after Hurricane Sandy kind of came through and did a lot of damage at Rockaway, the site was rebuilt in such a way that it's better for the birds. Um, it's not accessible for anyone walking the beach to go in. So you can see some of the birds from the boardwalk. They have interpretive signs all down the boardwalk now, telling people what they are. The last time I was there, last fall, walking down the boardwalk, just remembering my time there, watching people read the signs and talk about the different birds, hearing them talk in different languages about the birds. Like I don't really speak any other languages, but when someone's talking about a bird, I seem to know no matter what language they're speaking. But it was good. It was good to see the project still going.
Well, piping plovers are such an iconic species, and there's so much that we can learn, even in our area. Piping plovers have just about vanished from the Great Lakes. They're still around. They used to be around our region more. I think the closest at breeding programs in the last couple of years is probably in Presque Isle, and is not that successful. But it's a conservation lesson that we can learn about how to protect these birds, and maybe this pandemic that we're going through is allowing birds to have more room outside, room away from people. So that's a great thing that you did, and that's an important lesson to continue to bring forward, the conservation lesson about how to protect these very critically endangered species. The one last thing I want to talk to you about is I know that you're still doing education work. You're doing some online work, and I know that, for instance, tonight you're doing a program for beginning birders. Are more of those planned through Buffalo Audubon in the next weeks and months?
Yes. So we'll be announcing our one for next week soon. We have the beginner birding one tonight. Next week we're going to do one on fall migration. Sorry, spring migration. And then we'll come up with different things for the Allegheny Nature Pilgrimage this year. We're going to do that virtually. So I'm going to do my pond study program virtually. We're working on that. So yeah, we are still trying to do everything we can at Buffalo Audubon to bring programming to people. Our preserves are still open for hiking. We're still doing our work with Tern Island. We're still, that habitat is still there for birds. So if you can, to help keep us going, head over to buffaloaudubon.org and look for the donation section of our website, and make a donation. And if you're not a member, become a member. You'll get our newsletter. I think it's $35 to be a member for a year, so you get our newsletter every 3 months. hear about our programs, our meetings, and our festivals, and help support us and keep us going.
Well, please donate to Buffalo Audubon. We'll put up the link to the Buffalo Audubon website, and also there's a Facebook page that'll help everybody keep updated about what's going on. We're going to share some of your virtual programs on the Birds of Niagara site. And Tom, it's really great to see you, and it's great to talk to you. And thanks for sticking in there. And my family to yours, love you, and the whole West York community loves you. And so thanks for
Great.
being here.
Thank you.
And being such a great advocate for birds and wildlife.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.